Welcome everybody. Today evening we'll talk on filters, lens filters, camera filters they call it, or lens filters. So this is going to be a very basic guide, beginner's guide, but I'm going to cover quite a lot of advanced topics also because a lot of questions came which wanted me to cover both basic as well as advanced topics. Lens filters are sort of essential for creative photography. So a lot of people know about one basic filter, which every camera seller really sells you, the UV filter. I'm not going to talk much about it, except that it's useless. So my basic idea is 5 to 6 essential useful filters and how creatively you can use those filters and get your work done. So let's go into the first set of filters. Now, all these filters come in two shapes. There is either a circular filter or a square filter. Now, the circular filter is the most common one, and most of the time, everybody really goes into this circular filter first. And then he realizes that it's better to go for square filters, and then he sells those circular filters, and then he buys a square filter. So my basic idea today is to make sure that you don't buy these filters again and again and sell them and then lose quite a lot of money, because most of these filters are quite expensive, and you might as well go for the best filters straight away in the first attempt itself. There are a lot of companies and there is a lot of misinformation in the net, basically talking about these filters, and there are a lot of people who are sponsored by these filter companies to talk good about those filters. I have tried quite a vast variety of filters, and I know few of them are good, few of them are mediocre, and few of them are extremely bad. So I'm not going to cover the bad ones. I'll just tell you about them. So let's talk about circular filters. So when you go into circular filters, this basically gets screwed directly into the front of the lens. Now, the front of the lens has got a screw diameter. It depends on the lens's front element, and it can vary from 35 mm to about say 85, 80, some of them are even at 90 mm. So does that mean that I have to buy a filter which is equivalent to my lens? For example, let's say that my lens front element is 67 mm. So should I buy a 67 mm filter? Then I have another lens which is about 72 mm, and I have another lens which is 85 mm. So what will I do if I have varied number of lenses and each having a front diameter which is totally different? No, what you do is you buy what are called step up rings and step down rings. So this is a ring which is a step down ring. It takes a 52 mm thread and then makes it into a 49 mm. Whereas this is step up ring. So 49 will become 52 and 77 will become 82. Now this is the common set of step up rings, and you buy the biggest filter you can afford. So let's say that you have one lens which is 52 mm, then another lens which is 67 mm, and a third lens which is 82 mm. I'll give you an example. For example, 1635 f2.8 in Canon is 82 mm front thread, whereas 24 to 70 is a 72 mm. And if you go into 50 mm 1.8, it's around 52 mm. So each one of them have got a different front thread. So what you do is you add this ring to the front thread, then keep on adding till you get 82 mm, and then you add your 82 mm filter. So that way you can use You don't need this set. This is for the other way around. Like if you have a larger diameter and you put a smaller diameter filter, but that won't work, because what happens is there is what's called a vignetting. There'll be an area of darkness at the edge. So this is not for normal purposes. This is for combining few different elements. But what we really need is what is called a step-up ring. So this ring goes on the lens, and then the filter goes on top of it. And since the filter is larger in size than the lens's front diameter, you don't get a vignetting. It's like adding a front lens hood. The lens hood is really bigger than the lens front diameter. You can ask questions later. I'll give you a time, so you can ask questions later. I'll first explain the stuff, and then we have plenty of time to discuss questions. You can always use chat to ask questions while I'm talking. So if you have any doubt, if you have any questions, you can just write it in chat, and I have my co-host moderating it. So in case if there is anything, he'll inform me. Now coming to the next question, next type of filter, that is the square filter. Now square filters look odd because circular filters are very simple. You just thread it in and you can thread it out. But why do you need a square filter? I'll explain that when we talk about ND filters and why we need square filters. But meanwhile, let me show you the square filter. The square filter basically is a system. It's not just a single filter. So you need a holder, you need an adapter, you need also a step up and step down ring to connect it to your rounded lens front. So using all that is a system as such. So you buy a holder first, then you buy lenses diameter to this holder connector. Now usually the holders come in two sizes. This is a 100 mm size. There is also 150 mm, which is a larger size. So let's say that your lens is 77 mm. Then you need a connector which connects basically 77 mm to 100 mm filter. So that's all the whole system. So if you open it out, this is how it is. So you have the lens front, then you have a sort of a step up ring, which basically connects the circular front end of the lens to the back end of the square filter, and then you can add a polarizing filter there, and also you can slip in these elements which are either square or rectangle. Now this is how you stack several filters. So these square filters usually have slots, multiple slots will be there. So you can add one filter. On top of that, you can add another filter. You can add a polarizing filter. So you can add multiple filters stacked one on top of them, and that gives you extra features. Once we go into what is called a neutral density, I can explain all these terminologies and tell you what it is. But before that, let's go into a filter which is very, very essential for most creative photographers. That is a circular polarizing filter. Now, here is a demonstration of how that circular polarizing filter basically works in front of a LCD screen. So LCDs always emit a polarized light. Normal sunlight is not a polarized light. It contains multiple lights at multiple angles, and what the circular polarizer does is it cuts a light in every angle and leaves only one angle of light entering into the sensor. So in this case, the LCD is typically at 45-degree angle. So when the lens is turned 45 degrees, almost no light comes in, no light emits in. That's why it's pretty dark. Now, I'll give you another example here. See, this works only allowing a polarized light into the camera. So that means the light travels only in one direction. So all the light which is traveling in all other directions are lost. Now this gives you quite a lot of advantage. That means the reflections, I'll show you the example later, but reflections are light sources which come in multiple directions. So they are bouncing together in multiple direction. When you are cutting all that direction and allowing only the light to come in one direction, you are reducing the reflection. For example, you are shooting a water surface of water, then what happens is, normally when you take a photograph of a water, and let's say that there are fishes floating, swimming inside the water, you won't be able to get the fish. You will be only getting the top of the water and the reflection. So using polarizing filter, you can cut down that reflection. You can also increase the saturation. So a saturation of the color basically depends on these light which comes in a single type of direction. So when you rotate this circular polarizing filter in front of the lens, that is when you get a point where the whole saturation increases. Now this saturation increase as well as the reflection changes cannot be done in Photoshop easily. It can be done, but it looks fake. But if you're really able to do it in camera, in the field, then it's fantastic. Now the third part, the clouds. So when there is a mixture of bright sky and a cloud, and you want to make that cloud stand out, it's basically using the same feature as the saturation. You get a much better cloud and sky picture using a circular polarizing filter. So it's a must-have filter for any landscape photography. Let me show you the picture. See, this is a pond with lily leaves. So on the left hand side, what you are seeing is a reflection, and that reflection is totally gone when you turn the polarizing filter to a particular angle. It's not specific. You keep on rotating and look through the viewfinder, you will see this particular results through the viewfinder itself. So it's fantastic. But there is one caveat about this. The polarizing filter really works well when the light is side lit. So early mornings or late evenings, you get a better polarizing effect than mid noon. So if you are taking some photograph in the mid afternoon, you may not be getting this clear cut example. You will get results, but you won't get that fantastic absence of reflection. For that you have to wait for the light which is side lit. So either in the morning hours or in the late evening hours. So that's the time when you can totally cut the reflection and you get a clear water pictures. I know you will have questions, so please ask them in the chat. So later we'll go through the chat and then I'll answer these doubts. Now let's go to the second filters, which are pretty useful. ND filters is a short term which is used to call them, but the longer name is neutral density filter. What this does is, it basically blocks light. And why is it called neutral density? It doesn't alter the color of the picture. It just cuts the light. The luminosity part of the light is cut, but color part is not changed. So what you get is an extra duration of shutter speed. It can be both shutter speed as well as aperture, but basically what we want is to extend the shutter speed. Why do we want to extend the shutter speed? To get a blurred effect, which is not possible in a bright sunlight. Now, it comes with several strengths, and the strengths are numbered. So it's called ND2 to ND. This is not 10,000, 100,000, 1 lakh. So that's the largest ND filter you can get. This is about 16 1/3 stops. That's an ND filter what you can get. This is used for solar, as a solar filter. A solar eclipse you want to take, you need filters of this size. Whereas ND2 filters are used in a common portrait type of situation. I'll explain you why people will use ND filters in portrait. Let's go to ND filters. So here is one example of ND filter which is used. This is in Panjim, the church. I went in the evening, but even there was a lot of strong light, and there was a moon, and I wanted to capture the moon as well as the clouds moving. So used a 6-stop ND filter and took this long shutter speed photograph so that the cloud and the moon look, hazy and pretty nice. So waterfalls are one of the best way where you can explore this ND filters. So this is in mid-afternoon. This is Shiradi Ghat. I had finished a workshop in Bangalore and was coming back. So this is a rainy season. So halfway through Shiradi Ghat, I stopped my car, went to the edge of the ghat and saw one beautiful waterfall. Added my ND filter. This was again a 6-stop filter, which I used, and I could get a 10-second exposure in this, and this was too much because I just couldn't see the waterfall. So then I had to increase my ISO, and then I got this particular picture. So I want sometime, when you try to think, okay, 10 stops gives you fantastic results. No, 10 stops will give you absolutely no flow at all. This becomes totally something like this. This is a sea. Our Arabian Sea is pretty violent in Mangalore. If you ever come here, don't go to swim. You'll probably get drowned. So the waves are quite bad. But when you take them at about 15 seconds, this is how calm and tranquil the sea will look. This is 15-second exposure. And this is somewhere at about 5 o'clock in the evening. So to get that, you need one 10-stop filter and probably another 6-stop filter, which are added together. So with that, I could get a result something like this. So very tranquil pictures. This is again using a ND filter. This is from Kudremukh, a national park. Some of the small rivulet which turns into a waterfall during rainy season. This is again a similar view. This is from Charmadi. Now, these ND filters come with different strengths, and there's a very confusing terminology they use. So I tried to simplify it. So when there is one f-stop reduction, this is cutting the light into half. So let's say that you are in f8 and you want to go into f11. That is one stop. So f11 to f16 is one stop, whereas f16 to f22 is one stop. Similarly, in shutter speeds, if you are in 1/25th of a second, if you go into 60th of a second, you are cutting down one stop of light. So that is ND2. 2 stop of light, ND4. 3 stop of light is ND8. So this is 2, 4, 8. It's a multiplication similar to what we see in our ISOs, similar to that. So now f-stop reduction is calculated here. So if you are at the 6th stop, it is called ND64. 10-stop filter is really ND1024, but they call it ND1000. They just round it off. This is the biggest one I said, 16 and a 2/3 stop. That's ND100,000. Now, there's few companies use different terminology and names. For example, if you go into Hoya or Nisi, they start using this term, ND3, which is equivalent to ND1000. Okay, now don't confuse with this. This is a proprietary naming by different companies. Sorry, let me go back. This is a proprietary naming. This terminology is much better, and ideally, you think of how much of f-stops I'm going to cut down with that particular filter. So when somebody says ND16, it is not that it's going to cut down 16 stops. It's only cut down 4 stops. So ND1000 only cuts down 10 stops. This is the commonest filter used for this long shutter speed photography. So this is the ND filter rating. You can go to Wikipedia under neutral density filters. You get all these numbers and details. This is another handy printout which I usually carry it in my pocket. This is when I do a long shutter speed photography. First, what I do is I don't add the filter first. So I take the normal exposure using the aperture I want, ISO I want. ISO in most of the cases it's 100. I'll keep it at ISO 100. Shutter speed I calculate depending on the light, and then aperture I calculate depending on the depth of field. So most of the time I keep it at about aperture of f11. I don't go into f14, f16, f22 because diffraction is another element which comes in. So don't go for diffraction type of apertures. So keep it at about f11, which gives you a sharpest aperture as well as best depth of field. Then what you do is you calculate the shutter speed. Now the meter in your camera itself will tell you what is the shutter speed required. Now I have this the whole chart made it into two calculations. This is for low light and this is for the good light. So if in a good light, if my camera says 1 by 1/25th of a second, when I add a filter of this particular density, what will be the shutter speed I get? So this is a handy chart which initially I used to carry it as a paper. Now I put it on a mobile phone. So let's say that 10 stop filter. This is the 10 stop ND 1000. That is a 10 stop filter. So let's say that my camera first time gives f11 ISO 100 1 by 1/25th of a second exposure. This is the normal light what you get in the evening at say 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. If I add a 10 stop filter, then my shutter speed will be 8 seconds. The shutter speed for a particular good aperture, good exposure will be 8 seconds. If my shutter speed was initially 1 second, okay, this happens somewhere after sunset, when you go say about 7 o'clock at that particular point, not 7 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock now because now the sunset is late. In normal, it's about 6:30, soon after the sun sets, the golden hour time. That's where you get about 1 second exposure to get a good result. Then if you put the same ND10 10 stop filter, you get something close to 16 minutes of shutter speed to get a good exposure. So this is the sort of extent of shutter speed what we can get using that one single filter. So by changing your shutter speed to whatever you want, or changing your ND filter to whatever you want, you can get how much of long exposure photograph you want. So let's say that you want only half a second, 1 minute exposure, and your actual meter shows 1 second exposure, then you need ND6 filter. Because if you put ND10 filter, it will give you 16 minutes of exposure. Until then, your picture will not appear well exposed. So this calculation, it requires some amount of calculation and trial and error, and once you do it, then you realize, okay, this is where I went wrong. But that's a calculation what you do. There are good ND filter calculators available now. You have Android apps as well as apps in iOS where you put your existing exposure, you put all the values. You can put your aperture value, your ISO value, your shutter speed value, and then you also can put your ND filter value, and then it will give you what should be the required amount of shutter speed you have to calculate. Now you might say that I have a meter inside my camera. Doesn't that meter calculate what is needed? Now this is where the circular polarizer as well as circular neutral density filter as well as the square neutral density filter comes in. What happens is your camera meter is not really equipped to calculate such a long shutter speed. It can do for shortest shutter speeds up to about say 30 seconds. Beyond 30 seconds, it cannot do. And especially when you put this ND filter in front of the lens, everything goes dark as far as the metering system is concerned, and it gets confused, so it won't give you a accurate meter. This is point number one. The second thing is your focus. Now let's say that you have focus to infinity, or you have focus to a particular point in the foreground where you want a particular element in the foreground, and you want your sky to really go blur. You want your water to go blurry because you are shooting a long shutter speed. And when you are trying to screw in that ND filter in front of it, what happens is that your focusing ring might get slightly moved and your focus will go out of focus. This is one. Once you screw in the filter, it is impossible for you to see because everything becomes dark in your viewfinder and you won't be able to focus. So this is the biggest drawback of a circular polarizing, the circular ND filters. Circular polarizing is yes, fine, but circular ND filters are really problematic. So that's why people go for a square or a rectangle format of ND filters. There, you put all the holders, you fix everything, you focus exactly how you want, you meter it for your calculation, and then you just slide in your ND filter into that slot. So that way, there is no chance of your focus going awkward. In case you forgot how to meter, all you have to do is just pull that square filter up, and then you can again get a very good results as far as exposure and metering and focus, everything is concerned. So that's why preferably don't buy, you can buy circular polarizers, but don't buy circular ND filters. Now there is a third category of ND filters which I'm not covering here, what is called a variable ND filter. This is two rings, you keep on changing the ring, so it changes from say ND2 to ND4 to ND8 and so on. They are pretty bad. They give you X-shaped artifacts in the picture. So don't go for them. They are cheap because instead of buying 3 filters, you might think I'll buy 1 filter and I can rotate them as I want and get good results. If you want fantastic results, don't bother even thinking about them. I have a pretty expensive variable ND filter made by a company called Ray and Singh. It's more like a Rolls Royce of ND filters. Unfortunately, that also has that artifact. So variable ND filters are not really worthwhile. So it's better to go for individual ND filters. You can stack ND filters. So you can put a 2 and 4 and 8. So you can stack ND filters, and each ND filter will add up extra, so that you'll get a longer shutter speed adding those filters. So let me go into few other uses of ND filters. One is basically it can be used in portrait photography. Portrait photography, especially in the afternoon, you want to take a shallow depth of field photography. You can add ND filters, so it cuts down the light, and that's where the ND2, ND4 and ND8. This is 2 is 1 stop, 4 is 2 stop, 8 is 3 stop. So ND2, ND4 and ND8 filters really come out as a portrait filter. So I won't go in detail. There is what's called a high-speed sync flash photography. If you don't want to go into high-speed sync and you want to cut down the light totally, you can use these ND filters. If you have any questions regarding this, I'll answer it later in the questions. But think these are not good for landscape photography because they don't dramatically change anything. So if you are interested in landscape photography, then you go for 2 filters. Either buy a ND6 or ND10. You can combine both of them, so it becomes 10 plus 16. You can also, if you don't want to invest on ND10, you can invest in ND3 and ND6. Sorry, ND8 and ND6. Sorry, ND8 and ND10. So that will give you better results. So this is ND100, which is the 6-stop filter, and then you also get ND1000, which is a 10-stop filter. Now, Haida, this is the filter company which I use. This is not a top-end variety. The top ends are something like Lee, B plus W, are top-end filters. Haida and Nisi are coming under the medium-grade filters. Then you have a low-grade filters, which are all Chinese stuff. Don't even think of buying them. They have color cast. They are not really true ND filters. Haida and Nisi both are Chinese filters, but they are the slightly better quality filters. Then you have neutral density filters, which are great. These are this is rarely used filter, 16-stop filter. If you want hours of slow shutter speed, then you can go for this. Lee sells this as a solar filter, but I tend to use these mylar sheet solar filters, which are not neutral density. They are sort of a metallic sheets which are coated with mylar. So they are the ones which are better for the solar eclipse and all. We are using this sort of filters. These are not ND filters. These are exclusively solar filters. They are only meant for shooting sun, nothing else. A variety of ND filter is called the graduated neutral density filter. This is graduated from one end to the other one. They don't come in circular form. They come only in a square or rectangle form. What they do is, see, you might have noticed when you take a landscape photography, the land is always brighter and the sky, land is always duller and the sky is always brighter. So in such case, to darken the sky, you use the filters. So this is an example of that sort of filters. They come in various strengths, and they also come with various cutoff points. This is a hard edge graduated ND filter, useful for landscapes which are flat, like sea or something you want to use, you can use this hard edge filter. Whereas the soft edge graduated filter are better used in mountainous terrains or where there's a tree top, where you don't want to really cut off straight away. You want it to be gradually down. Now the use of these filters have really come down drastically once softwares like Lightroom came into the picture. You can easily draw a neutral density to the sky and make it darker compared to the ground, so that these filters are slowly fading off. So it's either a pure neutral density filter, but once upon a time, like in the film days, we used to use this quite often, because doing that particular darkening and lighting was difficult in post-processing. Next, this is a fun filter. So if you want to take infrared photograph, there are two ways of doing it. One is to modify your sensor so that your sensor is sensitive to infrared. For that, you have to send the camera to modifiers who can change the coating on top of the sensor, so that it can be sensitive to infrared. Usually there is another filter on top of it which cuts down the infrared. Or you can buy these filters. This is one example of a Hoya R72 filter, which basically makes infrared into a visible light so that the camera can record. Now, a camera cannot see infrared, but the filter makes this particular infrared into a visible spectrum of light so that it can be recorded. So we don't see these pictures because even our eyes are not really sensitive to infrared, but they can create a real good fun when you take photographs like this. The sky will look like this, the trees will look like this, the land will look like this. These are dark filters, so they take about 4 to 5 minutes of exposure to get this particular results, but results are phenomenal. They're rarely used. There are few filters which are used, especially in macro. These are close-up filters. Nobody really thinks them as a filter as such, like the ND filter or the circular polarizing filter. These are the screw-in filters in front of it. These are like magnifying glasses. So you get +1, +2. These are diopters, +4 diopters, and you can add these diopters in front of the lens so that the lens will magnify. It's like adding a magnifying glass in front of your lens. So that's all what it is. One of the common ones which a lot of macro photographers use is a Raynaud's. This is a sort of a screw-in filter right in front of the lens. This is again similar to that other one which I showed you. Basically, this magnified pictures. So this is only for macro guys. They are not useful for any other purpose. And finally, we come to this particular UV filter, and a lot of controversy whether people should use UV filters or should not use, because every time you go to a shop to buy a camera, the camera seller also sells you, or when you buy a lens, they say that to protect the front of the lens, you need UV filters. And a lot of people buy these UV filters, and a lot of people buy very expensive UV filters. UV filters were useful in the film days because the film was sensitive to ultraviolet light, whereas the present day digital sensors are not sensitive to ultraviolet light at all. There is one more filter which gives you a sort of a pinkish shade. It's called a skylight filter. They say the sky will become better. I hate this particular filter because it gives you a pretty funky pink shade. So it's not worth at all. But there are lovers of this particular filter who use this skylight filter. UV filters are very, very common. But do they really serve their purpose of saving your front end of the lens? No. The reason is every lens, the front part of the lens is a hardened lens. It's like your mobile phone Gorilla Glass, similar to that. So it is scratch proof to a certain extent. I mean, if you use a sandpaper and rub it, then the scratches will be there. Very fine scratches might be there, but they don't really change anything as far as your photographs are. But adding the UV filter really changes how the photographs are concerned. So if you're planning to buy a filter, buy only this last one, polarizer. The circular polarizer I mentioned very early in my slides. That's the one to go for. So ignore these two filters. I have few UV filters. If anybody wants to buy, I can sell them. But I don't recommend them to anybody. Now, let's see what happens with the UV filter. So if you add UV filter and then try to take night photography, that is when you start seeing ghosts. So if you want to shoot ghosts in your photograph, you can use UV filters. They create this funny flare. Now this is a reflection of this light in the UV filter, which again captured by your camera. So your camera captures multiple ghost pictures. I noticed this first time, I had UV filter. Again, I was also as gullible as most of you right at the beginning part of my photography career. I had UV filter, and I took night forest fire picture, and the forest fire always had multiple forest fires in my photograph. Then I realized it was a UV filter. So if you have a UV filter to protect your lens, no, it doesn't protect your lens at all. I advise you go for a lens hood instead of going for a UV filter. Lens hood will reduce the flare. It will also reduce this ghosting. So don't go for UV filters. Go for if your camera lens doesn't come with a UV for the lens hood, there are third-party lens hood manufacturers who basically can give you very good substitute. They are quite cheap, but they save your lens as well as the front element. So let me stop here about filters. Let me take up questions. So if you have any questions, please write it in the chat. Okay, now let me take one of the questions. Okay. Srinivas is asking, what kind of step-up ring can I use to use a bigger size polarized filter in a wide angle lens? Okay. So most of the wide angle lenses are usually at 77 mm or 82 mm. You have to tell me what exactly is the size of your uh, the front element, the filter thread of your wide angle lens. Then your ND filters come in two different sizes. There is thin ND filter and a thick ND filter. Thick ND filter, usually what happens is the rim is thick. So when the rim is thick, it will produce a weak tint. So that is where really ideally it's better to go for a square filter which does not have these problems, because they don't have a rim, they are much bigger. So most of the almost all the square filters start from 100 mm. So this is either 100 mm or 150 mm. So it's better to go for square filters. And in case you are going for a screwing filters, circular filters, go for one which is larger size. For example, if your lens is 77 mm, go for 82 mm filter and then get a step up ring from 77 to 82. So that way you can avoid vignetting. If you're not satisfied, you can ask again, Srinivas. Okay, Ravi Shankar is asking, in a circular ND filter, on exposing correctly, we can focus again, right? ND filter, you can focus again, definitely. But circular ND filter is, once you screw in again, it is cutting down light. So how you are going to focus it? Because you won't be able to see it from the viewfinder at all. And with that, especially if you have a 10 stop filter, it's pitch dark outside. Your viewfinder, you won't be able to see it. You can do it using your live view, but there is a problem, because what live view does is it increases the ISO temporarily so that you can see uh, the image and then try to focus it. So my advice is focus first and make sure that your focus stays exactly same, and then screw in your ND filters very slowly so that not to disturb the focus. Okay. Uh, Thick and thin filters. All companies come with thick and thin filters. Thin filters are expensive. Thick filters are cheaper, because I think it's easier to make thicker filters. Thinner filters, like Haida has both thick and thin. They call it Nano Pro on the thin ones. And they also have the coating which is different in the thin one, and the coating which is different in the thick one. Preferably thin is better, but there it is also more prone for a breakage. So ideally, if you're going for between thick and thin, I would advise going for the thin, because thick filters don't have any value other than a cheaper in price. So in case of square filters, large size 150 or 100. For most purposes, 100 mm is enough, because most lenses, the largest diameter is 82 mm. Unless you are going for a long lens, for example, let's say that 150 600. So you are trying to put a filter in front of 150 600. That is when you require 150 mm filter sizes. Then there are a few people who want to go for extremely wide lenses, like the 14 mm lenses in few companies, which almost go into 90 95 mm. So that is when you need 150 mm filter sizes. But for most purposes, 100 mm square filters are good enough. I was trying to use a 77 mm polarizer on my Canon on a 10-18 lens, which has a 67 mm diameter, using a 67 to 77. I get a lot of vignetting at about 10 mm. So, okay. At 10 mm, you should get a vignetting, because what happens is 10 mm is around, because it's a crop camera, at 10 mm, your lens is not wide enough to get that particular angle. So don't go down to 10 mm. At the maximum, you can go up to say 12 to 14 mm. In your 10 to 18, 14 mm is a sweet spot for you to get wide angle lens. See, the polarizer, what happens is polarizer doesn't work well in a wide angle lens. So if you are using a polarizer in a full frame on a 24 mm is the lowest limit, widest limit. Say if you have a 14 mm lens on a wide angle or a 10 to 18 mm lens on a crop body, you try to use a polarizer. The polarizer capability is not enough to cover that widest range. So even though your lens is good enough, the polarizer is not sufficient enough. That's a problem with the polarizer itself, because see, polarizer is basically made up of two glasses. There is a linear polarizer which is on one side, there is a quarter plate cut polarizer on the other side. So both of these move together to produce that polarizing effect what we have. So as you go wider and wider, this particular effect really goes off, because the angle of view is so wide that it cannot do the light which is coming from the edge are really curved as they enter into the sensor, and that causes a problem. So they are not really efficient when you go into wide. So any other questions? I covered all this thing. I can allow you to unmute. You can unmute, and if you want to have questions, you can ask. This someone who raised hand very early in the meeting. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Namaskara, doctor.
Namaskara, sir. Heli.
So there was this thing that some certain groups of people who are against filters at all. I mean,
yes.
They say that the filters itself is it's not required at all, and it is. I mean, they look down upon people who use filters. So, nimma ondo what views?
Illa, photography it's a form of art. It's not documenting anything. So when you try to capture it and save it in the camera itself, that itself is a modification. In real life, nothing works at 1/25th of a second. It's always mobile, but in a photograph we try to capture it in a few moments. The use of aperture to get the depth of field, the ISO to change everything, these are all modifications. So I think I'm not that Puritan as far as I should not do this, should not do that.
You ಕೇಳಿದಿರಾ?
ನಾನು ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೇನೆ and there was a long discussion when I had an article on long exposure photography on different types of filters. Somebody asked this particular question because humans don't really see a long exposure, so you are creating a sort of a aberration using filters. I said that is creativity. So if you don't want to be creative.
No, adu innondu, they say that a lot of things can be done in Photoshop these days, so investment on filters is really not required anta. That one more thought process that people have.
Yes, but there are few things which are not possible. For example, the effect what polarizing filter gives, the reflection, removing of the reflection, that is very difficult to do in Photoshop, even for experts. Then you can easily do a sky darkening, saturation increase, all of them is possible. That's not really difficult, but the polarizer to remove reflection, that's fantastic. The second thing is the long exposure photography. You can't take waterfall and do it in Photoshop. I mean, you can do multiple shots, you can combine them in Photoshop, you can do merging of different time exposures into one long exposure, but that's not really a great idea. I think capturing something in camera is a much better idea.
Sorry if I'm hogging the bandwidth. Last one question. See, I think when initially, I think I also had the dilemma. ಸುಮಾರು ಇದು ಒಂದು ಈ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪೋಲರೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಓಕೆ ಇದು ಬೇಡ, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾರೋ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ಒಂದು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ND ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಹೀಗೆ ಹಂಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಐ ಶೋರ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ಸೋ ವೆಂಟ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದಿಸ್ at some point of time. So ಇವಾಗ just if you say that somebody is is an amateur photographer and he's a travel photographer, see once in a while he shoots let us say landscapes and waterfalls along the way, not really full time, but what should be his minimum filter set that he should carry?
Okay.
Should it be one polarizer filter and one ND filter, or what is it?
One polarizer and one ND filter is sufficient.
I think so.
If it's a basic one. Yeah. So I would advise go for one good circular polarizing filter, which is thin circular polarizing filter, and then go for one ND10 filter.
And mostly with your landscape lenses, which is 1635 or 1740 or something like that. And I think that should be enough to start with. Some people go and invest this big kit with this, this whole lens filter kit they buy, and then hardly they use it. 2 years they never go anywhere and just lying there somewhere, and it's a big waste.
True. If you want to go for one full kit, it will cost something close to about say 25 to 27,000. So it's pretty expensive, which will give you circular polarizer, 2 ND filters and a filter holder, and it's all a square filter set. That's quite expensive, but if you are into full-time landscape photography, I think it's worth investing on that. But other than that, I think it's better to go for one ND filter. Either you can go for ND6 or 6-stop, sorry, not ND6, it's ND100, which is a 6-stop filter, or ND1000, which is a 10-stop filter. 6-stop or 10-stop is quite sufficient. You add polarizer, again you end up in another 1.5 stop down. So you can use that particular thing if you are an occasional landscape photographer. And go for a good quality filter instead of struggling with those cheap Amazon Chinese clones.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. Yeah, there are 2 questions. Sahaya asking, I have a Haida filter holder which is 150 series. You can't use 100 to 150 mm square filter. You have to use 150 only in a 150 mm series. If you have a 100 series, then you can use 100-150 square filters. Then 100-150 is not a square filter, it's a rectangle filter. It's on 100 on one side with 150 on the other side. There is a width is 150, height is 100. So what that can be done is it can be slid down. Usually graduated ND filters are 100 into 150. The normal filters are square filters. So they are 100 into 100, which goes into 100 series of holders, 150 into 150, which goes into 150 series of filters. I think I'm clear. If not, you can ask question again. So will a circular polarizer filter help in macro photography or bird photography? Okay, Shiva, bird photography, I'm not very sure, but it definitely helps in macro photography. In macro photography, polarizing filter allows you to cut down quite a lot of shine from the critters. So the insects which have got a shell which is very, very shiny, that is the one which can be 1 minute, just hold on, I'll be back. Yeah. So for macro, it definitely helps. Bird photography, I'm not very sure about it. I don't think it will help because a polarizer is so far off, and I think if you have a close-up of birds where you want to have feather shines, I think that's where it might help. Is polarizer useful in macro photography? Yes. It won't be useful to cut off flash, but what you can do is, it can cut off the reflections on the shell of the insects. So that's where it's useful. Thank you, Shankar.
Hello, sir. I have one more question.
Sure.
See, basically, whenever we go on motorcycle rides, if one of us is in a car Okay, so what we do is we take photo of the motorcycles night ride. I'm talking specifically night call of midnight ride. So
Okay.
where light is very very dim on the highway, there's no street lights also. So when we take that, of course, we set the high ISO everything. But when the wind is, it's too windy, it's difficult to take a photo. So we close the window, obviously, or even from the front windshield. So obviously there'll be a big glare which everybody hates. Okay, we don't want a glare.
Okay.
But then that is where the one of the suggestions what I got was use a polarizing filter that time. That filter
Okay.
cuts the glare even at night. But then if it cuts off these 1.5 stops or something, so in dim light in a polarizing filter, glare is gone, reflection is gone, which is good. The ghost, what you said, something like that. But light is also cut off. So what is the balancing factor? What do you suggest?
No, I don't think really that glare can be cut off using a polarizing filter. You can only reduce it to a certain extent, but it won't be able to, you won't be able to cut off it. So if you really want to remove the glare, what you need is a sort of a snoot-like structure. So I think there was a discussion about sort of a lens hood, which is universal, sort of a rubber-like lens hood in our group a few days back. I think you shared it or somebody else. I'll share that again in our group. It basically looks like a rubber sleeve, which basically goes into sort of a snoot, which goes forward. Yes. You can attach it to your glass. It forms like a lens hood, which is basically made up of rubber. Now, using that, you can reduce the glare totally. So it's extremely useful, especially when you're doing a flight photography. I'm talking about, you're traveling in the airplane and you want to shoot the ground or the clouds. But usually what happens is when you're on a plane, when you try to take a photograph of something outside, your window's glare comes in. So if you want to eliminate that particular type of hood is useful. It looks like a long sleeve, which is basically made up of a soft rubber, soft black rubber.
Yeah, I had asked for recommendations, right?
Yes, that is the one which you can use exactly to remove the glare. Okay. So that will work perfectly for your glare purpose. It won't cut any amount of light, but it will eliminate the glare completely. So all you have to do is you have to fit the front end of that particular snoot to the glass, the window glass, and the back end will go into the ring around your lens.
Okay, thank you.
It should work. Polarizer will not work there. Yes. Any other questions?
Sir, Shiva here.
Yeah, tell me, Shiva.
Yeah. So you don't suggest Amazon basic circular CPL filter?
No, if you are in a budget, I think circular CPL filter is good enough.
I mean, Amazon basic one is...
Amazon basic one circular polarizer is okay, but it's not fantastic. It's just rebranded Chinese filters. Most of these filters are not efficient in the sense they either change the colors. There is a color cast. That's one problem. The second thing is they are not very efficient polarizers. Like they don't polarize efficiently. So instead of, most of the time what happens is you buy the filter, then realize that it's not working. So then you sell it and you lose quite a lot of money, and then you go for a good one later. So I advise you, when you're investing, it's a lifetime investment. You're not going to upgrade that particular filter ever unless it breaks. So you might as well go for the best of the lot, whatever you can afford. And all polarizing filters are circular. Even the one which is used inside a square holder is a circular polarizer because you need to rotate it.
Okay. Thanks.
Nisi, yes, that's a Nisi site. ImageNet is a Nisi distributor in India. Haida Videolinks is a distributor. Haida and Nisi both are quite reasonable. Those are the ones which to go for if you want a circular or a square filters. If you have a lot of money to spend, then you go for a Lee filters. Lee's very high-end filters. You also have B plus W, which is higher than that, more expensive. It's a German filter. I recommend Haida. Haida is quite good for the price point as well as the quality wise. It's Haida is fantastic. I see you again in the next workshop. So I'll inform you. Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. Please tell your friends that such a Zoom meeting is there, and they all can join. Thank you.